This is a comparison of the 2024 Millennium Falcon polybag and the Millennium Falcon Microfighter. And I also have a separate review of the Millennium Falcon polybag if you want to check that out. But now into the real comparison, because if you didn't know, this is actually the only polybag that is from the Millennium Falcon. It's the only polybag that is Millennium Falcon. Obviously, there's been a lot more other sets, so I decided the best set to compare it to was this Millennium Falcon. I think M&R did a little bit of that in his review, but he didn't do a full comparison of it. And I thought this actually was a pretty good model, so I'm going to compare it to the other smaller polybag. Of course, I have this Han Solo minifigure, and the blaster is a custom one from a Brick Arms blaster pack. If you guys want to check that video out, I also have that. But this figure did come in the $10 version, which is the Microfighter. But I will swap out the blaster. Here's the actual original one, and I had this Brick Arms one for the intro, which I do have a video if you guys want to check that out about the other silver blasters. But now into the actual comparison, which I shouldn't really include the minifigure that comes in the Microfighter because it won't really be fair because, of course, none of the Star Wars polybags have any minifigures. But now into the actual comparison. Of course, these are on completely different scales. They're not really the same. They have a lot of similarities, of course, the actual shape, but they also have a lot of differences because this is a lot more thick, like a actual Microfighter. And, of course, has a space for a minifigure, which takes away a whole lot of detail, but it actually does stuff that is a little bit better than the actual polybag. Like, this is actually a printed dome piece, which I would reattach there, but I'm not going to because I have to reattach it for the rest of the comparison. But it actually is really cool that it's completely printed. Technically, it's not accurate because the minifigure would be inside if you're not sitting on top. But, of course, Microfighters are pretty fun, you know. At least I've grown up with them a lot. I really like some the builds. Is an easy way to get minifigures as well as a cheap way, but of course it's not accurate. It's sort of like how I feel about mechs. But now on to a little bit more of the polybag, which I kind of like a little bit more about the shaping. I know it is a little bit more thin, but I think the shaping is a little bit better and a little bit more accurate. And I do find that a bunch of smaller stuff has a lot more detail on the bigger set, which is the $10 Microfighter, and of course has the printed dome piece, which I just talked about. It actually uses a couple more pieces for this satellite dish here, and these thrusters or boosters outside are a little bit more forward, and this one, it's sort of like inside of cave, is kind of just like inside of the ship rather than being out. I'm not quite sure which one is more accurate. I think this one looks a lot better. And this is how you attach it. It's just using these like joint pieces that you can just bend, so you can, I guess, technically adjust it a little bit, but it wouldn't really make it more accurate. It's kind of just like, not really a play feature, but it's kind of just there. And of course, it has these stud shooters, which is technically where a cannon would be. Of course, there's also one on the bottom that isn't included on any one of them, but there is a binocular piece to represent that. And I'll actually take in a like bigger Millennium Falcon to do a little bit more of a comparison. Here's the bigger Millennium Falcon. Obviously, it doesn't completely fit in the camera frame, so that's the reason why I'm not doing a full comparison with it. But now you can see what I'm talking about with the cannons on the top, and we can get a little bit more accurate shape because it is actually a little bit bigger, so I'll do a heads-up view of it. Here's what I was talking about, a little bit more accurate shape on the polybag because it is a little bit longer, like the actual wings where the escape pod should be in the middle of them. Let me know if you want to do a comparison of the actual bigger one against one of these. But of course, they sacrificed the detail for a play feature, which again is inaccurate with these red studs. But of course, they're just normal stud shooters. You can flick them out. I'm not going to right now. They work pretty well, even though they are a little bit old. And also, there's a lot more like detail. I shouldn't say there's a lot more detail because it's a little bit of a different detail, I guess you could say, because I'm not quite sure which episode this is supposed to be from. I know the bigger model was from episode 9, but I'm assuming this one is from episode 4 or 5, it's seeming like. Maybe this one is 5 or 6, I'm not quite sure, because there is maybe some smaller changes that they have, but definitely two completely different takes of it. Now I want to look at the underside of the Millennium Falcons here. Of course, this one has a like Microfighter, I don't know what to call them, like a 2x2 sort of like flat, not completely flat, but it has like a little bump on it, so you can sort of glide it along a table without it scratching. It's kind of weird placement, but again, it's kind of just for play features. There's no actual detail there. But this one is actually has probably the coolest play feature, or not play feature, but like detail that I've seen out of these two, which is actually the landing gear, which is super cool. I only wish there was an actual way to like get in. There's like a little platform. They could find some way to make a miniature platform that they like run into. I think that could be really cool. But I think these are actually really accurate for the Millennium Falcon, and definitely you wouldn't really see this in like a normal polybag. They went a little extra weight, but not too much. Just how I like it. I think it's actually pretty good and looks way better on display, because of course it's not really used for like play features. You wouldn't like swish around, I guess you could, but of course it's a smaller model, so you would mainly use it for display and completely have these out. So that is really cool. I think I said that in my review as well. But of course the thickness of the Microfighter adds a lot more detail. I still kind of like the detail on the polybag, but I prefer the detail that they went with on the Microfighter. Of course, it's not going to be $10 down. I'm not saying you should go buy it, but the polybag definitely isn't a bad purchase. At this time, I'd probably save up because, of course, May 4th is coming up. But this polybag definitely isn't bad for a little display piece. I definitely think the detail could have gone a different route. And, of course, I think it is one of the best Millennium Falcon polybags because it is the only Millennium Falcon polybag. Hopefully, LEGO makes more Millennium Falcon polybags in the future. And this is actually really strange because I think for a couple years they've been doing a polybag early, like before May. And then for their May 4th ECS set, they'd include the bigger version of whatever the smaller polybag is. In this case, it is the Jango Fett Slave 1. And of course, we didn't get a polybag. But I do have a new video which is going to come out, I think, later this week about the Jango Fett Slave 1, sort of like a polybag / Microfighter, which I just compared. If I had to say which one is better for your price, of course, one is half off the other one. The Microfighter is, of course, $10, and the polybag is only $5. Of course, it's going to cost you a lot more for like shipping and other stuff, because the older one, the Microfighter, is, of course, on retail. And you definitely shouldn't go on and get it because it is kind of just a small set, but it was cool if they had it for retail. You could just go to Target and get it, and it had the Millennium Falcon Han Solo in there, which was pretty cool. And the Han Solo is actually from episode 4, so I'm assuming that the ship is also from episode 4. And I think the Falcon from the polybag is, I think, episode 5. If I'm right, that would probably make the most sense. But if I had to pick one again, I'd probably pick the polybag. The only difference that I really don't like between them is, of course, the $10 one has a lot more detail, but that's what you're going to get when it's $5 more. And, of course, the printed piece, which it's don't think it would be too much. It'd be like a small little thing for LEGO to do, just add a little bit more detail to the polybag. Would have made it a lot better, but I don't think you can get this LEGO stores again because it is a polybag. Sadly, I would love LEGO to do that. But with that, that is going to be the end of today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have an amazing rest of your day, and see you on the next one.